So the plan is basically to get 95% of our power from clean sources. So that's going to be wind farms, solar farms, and not from other things like gas or coal. Now, the progress they've made so far, they've unblocked lots of policy to try and make this happen. The whole goal of this is because they think this will bring down bills. That's the whole way they sold it to the British public at the election, because clean power is cheap. But they haven't taken into consideration the cost of actually building that and the other factors that could, make those costs balloon over the next 5 years.
What are industry analysts then saying about what this means for energy costs over the coming years?
Yeah, so when you have to build out this much wind capacity so quickly, it means that you kind of have much less competition on the market. You're kind of forced to be building at higher rates, and it is a huge amount. We are tripling capacity in the next 5 years, and that does mean that there's going to be quite a squeeze on trying to build that. At the same time, you still need to have gas supplies online to on days where there's no wind blowing. That's happened a lot over the month of November, and that gas is going to be very, very expensive and still keep us a bit tied into the whole geopolitical context with Russia and where we're going to get our gas from.
If we hark all the way back to the distant days of the summer and the election campaign, Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband were promising that their plan to slash emissions would reduce household energy bills by as much as £300 a year. What's happened to that pledge? Have they just abandoned it?
Yeah, when I talked to Ed Miliband about this, he always is very, very, he always sticks to his guns. He says that bills will fall, because it's logical. Clean power is cheap. That's what determines bills, so bills will fall. But the question is, there are other things at play here. When we build wind farms, there's a levy that is added to bills, to our actual energy bills. So if you're building all this wind, you're also expanding the grid. That's also a cost that is added to energy bills. Energy bills are not just wholesale power prices, basically. So they're definitely, still kind of sticking to it slightly, but they definitely pared back language. They're now talking about the fact that bills could fall instead of that they will fall. They're saying they're building a foundation for bills to fall. Now, no one disputes that bills will probably fall in 2035, 2040, but in the short term, before the next election, it's much less clear.
What's gone wrong in this process, Eamon? Because, it was a long-standing pledge of this government that they would accelerate these targets. The goals are obviously noble, but what's falling down in the execution?
Yeah, I guess it's a lot of things that Labour's been seeing right now is that it's much harder to actually achieve stuff once in government. That £300 pledge was based on some modelling that people are disputing now because the assumptions maybe weren't correct. They kind of said that and now they're having to stick to it. And I guess Labour's realising that there are just, it isn't difficult. It is quite difficult to actually, achieve this huge build-out of renewables. The UK is leading when it comes to wind, but tripling wind in that period is just so, so difficult. And, the industry is really happy with this kind of momentum the government has, but says that it's going to be, hugely ambitious, if not impossible, to achieve.
And just finally, then, given the constraint on budgets at the moment, anything that can be done to mitigate the impact on households?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of energy debt in the UK when it comes to consumer bills. That's going into a record. Even though bills have fallen, energy debt is still rising. When it comes to actually showing that bills have fallen, there is a little bit of a trick the government can do, which is to actually shift some of these levies from bills onto general taxation. So instead of us paying for our wind farms on our energy bills, we'll be paying through general taxation, which is a bit of a kind of a bit of an accounting trick, but that could be a way of taking off some of the pressure from households.